Hello, everyone. It's time to eat, drink, and be merry with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Hey, everybody. It is summertime in Arizona, and we're excited to get grilling and talking all things wine on today's Wine Time with Peggy Big Blend radio show. Peggy is here every first Wednesday, and we have a good time. She always teaches us wine terms. I know she's got one I can't pronounce that she's going to be talking about today. She's going to be talking about grilling. We're going to talk about what's going on in the vineyard. And now that it is warming up, especially in Arizona, we're going to talk about what wines to drink for hot summer days. I encourage you to go to Peggy's website. Her and her husband, Curt, own and run LDV Winery in Arizona. So the tasting room's in Scottsdale, and the actual winery itself is out in the Chiricahua foothills, so in southeast Arizona. So go to ldvwinery.com. So Peggy, how are you? Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm terrific. It's a beautiful day in Arizona. A little warm, but yeah, very nice.
Sizzles. It says she's wearing white for summer, you know?
Yes.
Nancy and I need to get on board with it. It's warm. We're recording this today in Oklahoma. I think it'll be airing when we're in Iowa, but it's in the 80s here today, which is quite lovely and sunshiny. Lots of flowers in bloom. And I don't know anything about Oklahoma wines, though. We'll get there.
Yeah, they have them. I don't know much about them either, though. So you educate me.
I'll let you know.
So we get to go drinking.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Nancy, that's it. Stop work. Let's go. Let's go. Well, I know Maryland had good wines, so that was pretty. That was good. But yeah, summer is here. Let's before we get into vineyard and everything, what should we be sipping on right now when it gets warm? Is it always whites, rosés? I know you have a new rosé.
We have a new rosé. Of course, it's perfect time for pulling out the rosés, and our rosé is a rosé of Grenache, so 100% Grenache. Ooh. Really, it's a more full-bodied rosé, zero residual sugar, but it's just a beautiful pool pounder. Or you might want to go to like a Viognier, which I have here, which makes a wonderful summertime pool pounder, I call it. And you can even make this a little spritzer, like by adding some seltzer water or something to it and putting it over ice with a lime or something. Makes it really wonderful for summer. But don't shy away from the reds. You know, there's some lighter reds. I mean, I do reds year round. That doesn't ever stop me from drinking a big cab or a big Syrah. But year round, choose a wonderful red. Chablis, like a French Chablis, is beautiful this time of year. Chardonnay, of course. I would go to more of a maybe an aged in stainless steel Chardonnay rather than a big buttery Chardonnay. But yeah, have fun with it.
What about temperature to keep it cool? Because I know people who put ice in their wine, and Peggy's like a Shanae, no, not in Peggy's house.
Well, if you drink it fast before it melts, then maybe I'm okay with it, but I don't like a watery wine, you know, so it all depends on in the summertime. The ice cubes melt pretty fast, and it takes away from the beauty of the wine. So I like to say, well, first of all, your refrigerator is too cold, because most refrigerators are between the 35 degrees to 37 degrees. So if you had your white wine, God forbid, but sitting out on a counter, I would say put it in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes to bring it up to temperature, and then drink it. Don't leave it, take it straight out of the refrigerator and pour it. So for light, dry white wine and sparkling wine, you want to shoot for between 40 and 50 degrees. For more of a full-bodied white and maybe a light fruity white wine, maybe the 50 or 60 degrees. And then when you're full-bodied reds, you want to be up in the 60 to 65 degrees. So, and I always get, well, what should I put my wine fridge on? You know, if it's I keep white and I keep red in it. Shoot for 45 to 65 degrees on your wine fridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how we keep our wine cold? Okay, we have our Portofino bags, right? So you
Right.
take 2 bottles of wine and you pour them into the little baggies. And when
Yeah.
you're doing that, you're giving a little aeration,
Right.
and then you lock it up in the, you do this little twisty thing. And actually it stores it better than like boxed wine stuff, right?
Right.
Like those, but we don't have that problem. Anyhow, so you lock it up, put it in your bag, but we put wine on like a cooler thing, those ice packs.
Sure.
And you know what? It actually works
Yeah,
pretty
I
good
bet it
because the
does.
ice packs don't, and we don't do the big dark, those big heavy ones, like little
Right.
ones that you would use maybe like if you got a bruise or something, kind of very like a gel
Right.
pack.
Yeah.
Because then it's not too much. And so it I don't know, for some reason seems to be the perfect temperature. I don't know what we're
Perfect.
doing, but it
But it's
works on the
working.
road,
Right.
Oh,
and
they're not really frozen. They're
Right.
just cold and they're pliable,
Mhm.
which is nice. So you can wrap them around the bottle if you
Mhm.
so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Whatever
So-
works, but the reason why you don't want any of your wines too cold is because it really dulls the aromas of the wine. You don't get to really enjoy the aromas. And as we've talked many times, that being able to enjoy the aroma and the taste together are really important to truly enjoy great wine.
Mhm. Yes, and a little aeration, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of those things where you pour wine and it does like things to it, like aerates it or whatever?
I don't use them, but I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people use them, so I'd rather have you do that than
Not drink wine.
right. So
Drink
try
the
it.
wine. Yeah, okay. So hey, we got into temperatures. That's a good thing for right now because the weather is also changing, right? So
Right.
it's
One other
what you-
tip. Let
Go
me
ahead.
just say, if you have one of those wine racks in your kitchen, above your stove or above your refrigerator, do not put your wine in there.
It'll get bad, yeah.
The kitchen is the hottest part of your house.
Yeah.
And it will ruin your wine.
We don't want that. We don't want that. So when we get into the vineyard, we've got to find out what's going on because it's interesting. We've been talking to produce people and everyone and garden people like in Central California, and they're going, our berry festival's not happening until June, which is it's just because everything changed because of the weather being cold and just the weather has changed when everything is ready for harvest compared to, for berries and stuff. So what's happening in the grapevine in regards to the weather being different from last year?
Well, we're doing well. When in the vineyard, I know we dodged a bullet with the horrible weather that we've had and how cold it was. I mean, in Cochise County, which is the county that we're in Arizona, the whole pistachio crop was ruined. So we're not going to have any.
Those are family
pistachios.
farms. Those are all
farms.
family farms.
A lot of the fruit trees, the peaches and like apple annies was hit very hard.
Oh no, we like them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we dodged a bullet. We really did. So in the vineyard, there's some markers that we look for as we're working towards in the growing season, as we're working towards harvest. The first one we talked about was bud break that happens in the vineyard. And that happened in early April. And if you remember, I had mentioned that because of the weather, all of the varieties were budding out at the same time, which was unusual. Usually they bud out at different times depending on the variety. Then where we are at now is flowering and transitioning into fruit set. I talked a little bit about flowering in May because that's when it first starts, and that's when you see, it's not a real showy flower, but at the end of the where it buds out, you get the little white little furry things at the end. And that's, where we're hopefully going to start seeing some fruit set, which is the next marker that happens. And we see that mid-June, maybe the fruit set occurring, and depending on the variety, into July. So that's the third big marker we look for. And what's great about taking a look at fruit set, it might help us predict, if all goes well and fingers crossed, how much fruit we might anticipate from the harvest. It's our first way of getting a feel for that, so that we can determine, okay, how many barrels are we going to order, and what kind of yeast are we going to get? All those kind of decisions will help us make that at that time. And then the other two markers, obviously, is veraison, which happens, and we'll talk more about that in July, I'm sure, because it usually occurs in late July and into early August, and that's when the grapes turn from the green color to beautiful purples, or a different kind of green, depending on the white wines. And then, of course, harvest, which begins in late August into September and October.
Could it be delayed because of the weather change? The harvest?
I don't think so. At least not from the past weather. From what might happen between now and harvest might dictate when it occurs. So how the weather continues. Remember, last year we talked about it. We had a hard time ripening because of the rain and so on that we had. So it all depends on what happens between now and August, but we're on the march to harvest, and the vineyard looks beautiful. The crop load looks decent, particularly for Grenache and Petite Syrah for us. The Viognier looks like we might have had a little bit of damage, but there is, a nice load out there and with the Syrah. So we're hopeful that we're headed towards that. So what we're doing right now, because they're like weeds, the vines are just growing like weeds, we have to start managing the canopy in the vineyard.
Okay.
So that there's enough airflow through the vines. So we're going through and getting rid of, doing some shoot thinning and getting rid of the stragglers that we don't want on the vine, to take the energy away from all of the shoots that we do want to have. So we're doing a lot of vineyard work. It's very hand-to-hand combat out there, and training the vines to go up onto the secondary wire, so that as it continues to grow, it has this nice canopy over the grapes, but also there's enough airflow occurring within the vine.
Because we don't want sweaty grapes. No sweaty grapes.
Yes, exactly.
Nope. I'm going right to SNL there. My brain went right there. I can't help it.
Well, Lisa.
No. But this is, the aeration too, that's the interesting thing, because you do have humidity out there.
Not as much as a lot of places.
Yeah. You could get, because I was wondering about how some of the places that we've been through do wine in such humidity, like North Carolina, and how do they do wine in humidity?
It's pretty humid.
Yeah. I don't know. That's really tough. You need in like for Pinot Noir, that's why it grows so beautifully up in Oregon, and because they do have some humidity, but they don't have any kind of humidity like in the East Coast, or where you're referring to. So it depends on the grape variety. So you got to choose a grape variety that does well in that kind of climate. But we don't get very humid until, we really don't until into September, late August, September. Different than, up in the valley of where I am right now, up around Scottsdale. That gets humid in the monsoon season, but nothing like the East Coast.
Right. Yeah. That humidity is like, oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, it's a little different. I'm used to going outside and drying my hair in the desert. That's kind of what I'm used to. But So canopy management is happening. So it's like creating, it's almost like, you know how it's not Japanese maple, but there's those plants where they grow like little hats.
Bonsai?
Yeah,
Oh,
kind of like that. But there's
uh-huh.
this one plant. Oh, you see it more in the Pacific West where it's weeping almost with
Oh,
flowers. And that's kind of what it sounds to me with doing your canopy. So you're creating this nice little shade blanket everywhere
right.
out in the vineyard. So I think it's all exciting, and we want it all to go really well because we want a lot more wine, That's
Exactly.
exciting.
Well, we
That's
do.
exciting. Yeah. And by the way, you were talking
Mm,
about rosé. Rosé, you said is International Rosé Day is coming up, June 10th.
right,
That's
June
important.
10th. Yes,
Oh,
so grab
very.
yourself, grab two bottles of rosé at least or more, but do a side-by-side tasting. Try a rosé of Grenache like that we make, and maybe try a very light Provence style rosé and see the difference. Because as we've talked about in the past, rosé isn't a type of grape. Rosé is the winemaking style. So you can have rosé made out of a variety of different grapes. So play around with it.
Okay, so Nancy had to disappear and play with some dogs over there. I think she really went to go get a bottle of rosé,
There you
Peggy.
go.
You know how she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's summer season and everybody's running around and having a good time outside. It's pool time. That's what's going on. Um, you've got your wine term for this month. And Durif, am I getting this right yet?
You
Durif?
are.
I want to
Durif.
say Durif, but
Yeah,
it's not. I want to say Durif, but
I believe it's Durif, and it has a real
okay.
strange history. It's actually named after a French botanist, Francois Durif, that in 1880 and at his home in Mount Pellier, France, he was playing around with grape varieties, and he crossed a Syrah and Palasin. I totally screwing up that name. Peloursin grape,
Okay.
and he accidentally created this Durif. He named it Durif, and it's actually a Petite Syrah. It didn't
Oh,
do
wow.
well. It didn't do well in France because of it couldn't ripen because of the temperature there. But some Californians at that time brought some home, planted it in California, and it really took off. So it
Wow.
is it's widely planted in Australia and in California, and of course in Arizona. It's our specialty grape at our vineyard. We love Petite Syrah. And since we're
We
going to
like
be,
your Petite Syrah.
yeah, and since we're going to be talking about grilling, I thought it'd be a great term to introduce. It's a high tannic wine. And if you're getting Durif or Petite Syrah that was produced in a cold climate, you might pick up some black cherry and plum notes to it. But if you're getting a Durif or Petite Syrah from a warmer climate, like from us, it's you picking up blackberry and prune kind of flavors to it. It's just perfect for grilling, stronger meats, game, lamb, anything with spicy sauces. It's the perfect pairing. So we love our Petite Syrah, and hopefully you can try some with your next barbecue.
I want some. I love your
Yeah.
wines. I remember, speaking of that, so when we get to grilling, and there you talk about, we've got your tips in everyone. We've also got a recipe. We got you hooked up from Peggy here. We've got tips on grilling, smoking, and barbecuing. And then we've got your recipe for grilled ribeye steak with firecracker onions and roasted potatoes. And I thought that was interesting because of the spice that goes into that.
Right.
And so I was, wondering about that, the flavors of pairings, spice, and then even just like you're saying, one like venison's going to be different than chicken. And then if you smoke and then if you use barbecue sauce, all of that has to play into what to pair, right?
I have trained you so well.
I've been learning. I've been learning. See, but that's because we're not having wine when we're talking on these podcasts. If we were having wine, it would just, whoops, let's repeat that.
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right. Like all the wittets that I always talk about are come into play. So, when you're doing ribs, for example, and you put a barbecue, tomato-based barbecue sauce versus maybe a mango based sweeter
Ooh.
barbecue sauce, you're going to have to pair it differently because of the saucing that you put onto it. But, you know, we barbecue year round, obviously, and smoke year round. Here in Arizona, and even at the vineyard, we do it year round. But not everyone has that opportunity. So people are, dusting off their barbecue grill and hopefully starting to think about it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the 3 different styles: barbecuing, grilling, and smoking. They're really 3 different techniques, and you use a different kind of proteins typically, depending on which technique you use. So when you're thinking about barbecuing, you're cooking over indirect heat on an outdoor grill typically, and you're slowly cooking it, versus grilling, which is you're putting your meat or whatever you're grilling over direct heat, and so you're cooking it quickly because you want to get a crust, or you want to sear in the juices of whatever the meat is that you're doing, and you're going to cook it quicker and at higher temperatures. And then smoking, which is similar to barbecuing, uses the indirect heat, but it's a longer cooking time. So that's something, if you're using tougher cuts of meat, you want to impart the smoking kind of flavor into the meat, you would smoke it. And so you're adding some chunks of wood or charcoal to create the flavor profile that you might. Is it apple?
So that's where the Petite Sirah really comes in. Really good.
Correct.
I grilled something that I'd never thought I would ever grill in my life. Actually, more than one thing. It all arrived on Nancy's birthday, and then it was Mother's Day weekend, and she, like, all right, you got to go do this. A big grilling basket from Melissa's Produce, and they had, I was very nervous about this because there were it was all vegetables.
Okay.
And fennel bulb, who knew?
Oh, yeah.
And it turned out really good. Portobello. So our protein for that was portobellos, which was nice and earthy. Very light marinade, but we did have wine with it. And I think it was it wasn't like a heavy. And then chamayo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. Chamayo. It's
CHOATE.
CHIMAYO. Chamayo.
Okay.
You'll see them in like specialty stores in Mexico.
The green.
Green, like a green thing. It's a squash, actually. So that was new. Garlic and these little baby onions. And I was thinking of your firecracker onions. Now I want to go get those onions and do that. But I actually had no idea. But I was just thinking Petite Sirah and those fennel bulbs. I fell in love with fennel bulbs. I cooked them, and I didn't break anything. I didn't burn the house down. I did it. I was very proud of myself. And I thought of you because I was going, there's all these different like bell peppers and all of these different things in here. But it really went well. I was amazed.
Awesome. Always when you're cooking with vegetables, some of the portobello mushroom or the fennel, think of it like a protein, what you would do with a protein. So a portobello is very meaty. So you can marinate that. It'll pick up particularly in red wine, marinated in red wine, it'll pick up the flavors. But you could put, pretty heavy duty, cheeses or sauces on it. I love to do portobello pizza. Use the portobello as the base for your pizza ingredients.
Are you kidding me? Oh, I'm gonna go get portobellos like right now.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna do that. Ooh.
When it's in season
with bacon.
Have fun with it. I could be a vegetarian if you give me portobello mushrooms.
But bacon with it. We have to. Nancy would request bacon, but with a little bit of blue cheese.
Oh my God. Beautiful. And then you put it with a wonderful petite sirah, you have a perfect meal. You know,
Mm,
the other tip about grilling vegetables is
Mm.
put them on skewers. You know,
yeah,
the
exactly.
peppers, the onions, if you want to chop up that beautiful portobello, put it on a skewer and then brush it with them or marinate them or brush it with a light, you know, soy, honey, or a balsamic
We used
vinegar
to do
base.
kebabs all the time in South Africa. It was part of barbecuing, but people would do chicken, and so it'd be the vegetable and the protein.
Yeah, yeah.
But they would marinate it. It was like you'd get them as it was like a staple of food.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and this marinade would kind of have like I think everyone used some kind of tomato base and spice. And so
Ah,
that's kind of your recipe reminds me of all of that. And so
yeah.
it would soak, people would marinate it for 24 to 48 to 72 hours. Breaks down that and that meat. You do it especially with cheap cuts of meat, you know,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
and it tenderizes down. Now I'm hungry. I haven't had this for so long. But what would you pair with that wine wise because of
Well,
the
it
tomato?
depends. Yeah, with the tomato, I would do a medium red or a Syrah. You know, I have a beautiful Syrah here. Would go great with
She's making us
something
all
like that.
thirsty.
Yeah, and so a medium red, a Pinot Noir, or maybe a fuller bodied white wine might stand up to it, depending on. It might clash with the tomato. I'm not certain. But we just had a beautiful prime rib that we smoked. You know, we smoked it it was an herb crusted prime rib, and we smoked it on
Applewood?
applewood, I
Mesquite?
believe it was mesquite. No,
Okay.
it wasn't mesquite. We typically smoke on mesquite, but we did, I believe it was an applewood. And oh my goodness, was it incredible. But that's a tender cut of meat, but we did smoke it. So you don't want to overcook it. So it's something that you would have to really watch. But typically when you're smoking, you want to really impart flavor into the meat. So you want to do it over, you know, indirect heat, like I had suggested. But, and you want to try to maintain that temperature consistently over time. So you have to watch it quite a bit when you're smoking it to make sure that the temperature stays consistent.
Now, what about your onion rings? Tell people about how to do your firecracker onions because
Those are the
these
best.
sound. I'm like serious. And how fun for this time of year, 4th of July coming up, and all of that. It's just I want just the name. I'm all like
Oh my gosh. So white onions sliced for like an onion ring and marinated in Tabasco or your favorite hot sauce. And you marinate it, doesn't have to be a long time, but you want to marinate them to pick up that flavor. And then I believe, I don't have the recipe in front of me, I have it then dipped into panko, don't I?
you have Tabasco. You've got you got the potatoes too. Garlic powder, salt and pepper, Tabasco, and oil. Garlic I don't see the
I don't have a
panko, but
coating. Nope. And
let me
then
see. Yeah, you don't coat those ones, but
Yeah.
you could if you
you
wanted.
could if you wanted to, but then oh my gosh, they are spicy.
Oh, you're
And
cooking them in oil. Oh,
yes,
yeah. And you cover them in flour
there we
with a
go. I
forklift
knew there
onion
was
ring.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did some flour. So that's
yeah.
ooh.
But it's a
some
light
olives.
flour. So when I take it, I use a fork and I take the onion ring out of the Tabasco and then put it into the flour that's already mixed with your garlic and your other seasonings, and then really shake it off. So there's not a lot of it on there, and then put it in your hot oil. It cooks right up, but it's pretty fabulous.
Can people air fry that?
Oh yeah, probably. I am not familiar with air frying.
I have no clue about it. I've had to, as we travel the country doing our pet sitting, why you hear dogs, people. Sorry, but hey, listen, we get to have wine time all over the country. It's great. But the air fryers are there and people are using them as toasters, and I'm going,
right.
I'm not like, it's a whole, I'm scared of them actually in a weird, it's kind of like those pressure cooker, one pot, hot pot thingies.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about them. Like, I don't know.
People swear by them and love them. I don't fry a lot of foods, so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I cook, so I would just fry. But
Just fry them. But
yeah,
but the Tabasco, when you get into really spicy food, can it overpower your wine? Because I don't want that. Because the wine to me is more important.
right. And as you know, as we've learned, that you don't want the food to overpower the wine or the wine to overpower the food. And so, yes, with a spicier food, you want a heavier or fuller bodied wine in order to make sure that it pairs well with it. So, from a Syrah on up to a Cabernet Sauvignon would be probably best with those spicier foods. It would overpower a white wine. It would clash actually with that Tabasco would probably clash with a white wine. So, however, like our Rosé of Grenache, which is a fuller bodied
Yeah, that might do it.
rosé, it might be an interesting pairing.
I've had
So,
Spanish food with rosés, like that
yeah.
kind of those flavors, and that's I'm hungry and thirsty.
And
This is dangerous.
I know the rosé goes beautiful with spicy, like Thai food. So, yeah, try it with some spicier foods.
Okay, since summer's coming, we're talking about grilling. What about dessert? Because some people actually do like apple pie on cast iron, and that kind of thing. I'm thinking a wine, and then there's s'mores and stuff like that. S'mores, however you say it. What would you do with that? Because now we're getting the sweet side. Would you do like a port or like a nice dessert kind of wine to go with that?
Right. You don't want too sweet of a wine to go with sweets. You want a drier wine to go with your sweets. So I think up on our website or up on my page, we talked about grilling pineapple.
Oh, that's right. We've got that recipe. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Oh, we'll link that, everyone. We'll hyperlink that and all of this, Peggy's recipe and grilling tips is all linked from the radio show notes. So wherever you're listening or watching, check out those links. I'll put that up there for people because it's also the pineapple, and even when you start bringing ice cream in, that changes the profile too.
Correct. So grill your pineapple, grill peaches.
Oh.
Peaches are in season right now out west. And so take a nice ripe peach, not overly ripe, but a nice white, and cut it in half and put put it on the grill, flesh side down, is just incredible. And then you can brush it with a little honey, or after it comes out, to sweeten it more, and put it with some whipped cream just by itself, with some whipped cream, or put some ice cream with it, just to die for. Yeah.
It's always dangerous when you come on a show. By the time we're done, I'm like, I need to eat. I need to have wine. It's a little early for wine time, but then, but you guys get to drink wine whenever you want.
That's right.
You get to taste. It's part of your job. Like,
yeah, it is. It is. And we're in the process of doing a lot of the tasting, because we're making some blends and getting ready to bottle some more wine. So even though we're busy in the vineyard, we're also busy in the winery, working away to try to get the winery tidied up so we can bring in the grapes in August.
Oh, wow. And at the tasting room in Scottsdale, I see that you guys have all kinds of events all the time. So
we try, it's all about creating experiences for people, because, if you will learn and you experience the wine, and you experience or learn about our approach to winemaking, I think people are more apt to want to take some wine home with them. And ultimately, that's our goal, is to sell wine, because we have a lot of it.
All right. We like that. Yeah. So everyone, ldvwinery.com is the website to go. Again, check out the show notes. And if you're in Arizona, go to Scottsdale, go see Peggy. They've got all kinds of great events at the winery. And when you go on their website, I encourage you to sign up for their newsletter. I love getting news from Peggy. I'm like, she's got more recipes. She's got things going on. It's fun. So keep up with them there. And also Curt does videos. You both do videos too.
Right. Right.
which is great. So people can stay in touch with what's happening in the winery and the vineyard. So everyone, again, ldvwinery.com will link you to everything. Peggy is here every first Wednesday, which we love. And keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. And happy summer. Thank you so much, Peggy.
You bet. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
I better go see what Nancy's done with that bottle of wine.